I see this all the time in driver forums, and I'm here to kind of trying to put a little bit of a calming effect on this one for a change. And what I'm doing in this one is, what if I told you that if you do it correctly, you shouldn't have to worry too much about your taxes at the end of the year as a Dasher or an Uber Eats driver. And here's why. You need to be able to, as long as you track your miles, which includes all of your trips back to your zone, this is important, all your trips back to your zone, and finally at the end of the day, your trip home. Particularly if you go out of your home zone in order to do this. You want to track all of your miles. The miles that you spend in your app. Don't count the ones that you use for your personal purposes or the ones that you use for, like even within the middle of a shift, for example. If you're going towards the gas station and you're not on an actual active time, those don't count. But everything else that I mentioned does. And here's why most people should not have to worry about it. Again, if you know your expense numbers, you're really good on this one. The IRS allows 70 cents per mile as a deduction from your taxable income in terms of mileage. Most people do not spend this much in vehicle expenses. I'm one of the rare exceptions who actually exceeds this because A, my vehicle's a gas guzzler, and B, my insurance rates are relatively high. I don't have the world's greatest driving record, admittedly. And unfortunately, credit comes into play now. I don't have the world's greatest, or I don't have the world's worst either, but I don't have the world's greatest credit score either. And insurance companies factor this in right now, which, if you want my opinion, it's a big scam to begin with, but that's here nor there and a different subject for a different time. Now, if you're not spending 70 cents per mile in actual expenses and you are able to write this amount off for your miles, the IRS is actually allowing you to come out ahead. You should, if done correctly, you should not have a major amount of taxable income at the end of the year. In fact, I would venture to say, I don't have any proof of this, but I would venture to say that most drivers are like myself and can show a modest loss at the end of the year, which I use to offset against my W-2 income. By small, I mean $1,000 to $2,000. I mean, it's not huge. I'm not taking with one hand and swiping with the other. But you shouldn't really owe anything per se, or any sort of a big, huge tax bill at the end of the year if you track your miles correctly. And if you list them correctly. I use TurboTax, for example, so I can enter the miles in just straight off. And it'll fill out the forms correctly for me. If you have a tax advisor or a tax accountant, they can do the same thing. So you're putting in your miles that you used to spend, that you've spent on your DoorDash or Uber Eats. Uber Eats in particular, I definitely show a loss because their offers are some of the worst, and in my market, they involve the most amount of miles expenditure. In this market, for Uber, I'm spending 3 miles for every dollar of earnings because of Uber's propensity to send drivers on long trips and pickups. And I, of course, reject the most outrageous of these, but I like to use these as loss leaders in order to be able to reduce the impact on my taxes at the end of the year. None of this is illegal, mind you. All of this is every bit legal. If you get audited for it, make sure you keep good records of all of this being tracked. You're going to want to have that available just in case the IRS comes along with their auditors. But I think if you're not showing an outrageous amount of loss or even showing a modest gain, I don't think you have anything to worry about, because as I understand it, through the grapevine, the IRS expects this. This is nothing unusual on their end. Same goes for most of your state tax agencies. This is not anything unusual or abnormal to have drivers that claim modest amounts of monetary loss in income at the end of the year, which then is used to offset W-2 income. So there it is. What if I told you that if you're freaking out about a large tax bill at the end of the year, stop freaking out. You're not going to have to worry about this. That's my little 2 cents for today. Been waiting for a while to do this, but other subjects have come up along the way. I will see you folks on the next go round. And as always, peace out, homies.